Welcome to Disability Empowerment Now, Season 4. I'm your host, Keith Murphy DiCancini. Today I'm talking to Natasha Hickling, podcast host of the Indigo Diaries. Natasha, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Keith. What an introduction. It's great to be here.
So tell me about yourself and your podcast.
Yeah, so I'm Tasha, or Natasha. I'm not bothered. It's one of those moments where you think, oh, I need to introduce myself, but I want to keep it short. So I'm trying to summarize it all in one, but then your brain goes blank. So I'm based in the UK. So obviously where you are, it's like 9 a.m., but here it's 5 p.m. I'm 32. I am an ADHD neurodivergent life coach and therapist, trauma informed therapist. I have ADHD. I'm autistic. Dyslexia and dyspraxia. I found out I was neurodivergent when I was in my 20s and my 30s, very kind of late diagnosis. And I started running my podcast during COVID as a way for people to hear stories, because at the time I was in Asia where there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of anything around kind of diversity or disability. So that's why I started it, to try and build that awareness where I was. And then I ended up just loving it and carrying it on.
So why did you choose the name Indigo Diaries, Indigo Hub?
Yeah. So it's a long story, long story cut short. There's a book called The Indigo Children. It's quite an old book. And it's about children that are different, and children have these kind of special strengths and abilities that are very different from kind of the average person. And when I was going through my teenagers, I didn't really know what was going on with me. I just thought it was weird. I never really fitted in, right? I never was kind of in the norm, and I had a lot of struggles kind of mental health wise. And because nobody could give me what actually was going on for me, my sister kind of introduced me to this book of the Indigo Children, and it was just a way of relating, even though I couldn't relate to them all the way. It was just kind of like this permission to be, it's okay to not kind of fit in and to have difficulties and struggles. And it kind of gave me a sense of kind of belonging that I'd wanted my whole life. So the word indigo has always been with me since then, really. And when I set up my business and my podcast, I wanted to bring that for the people.
So you're a neurodivergent coach or life coach, mentor.
Yeah.
I've seen that phrase or that job title a lot more recently nowadays, particularly on LinkedIn, which is how we met. What got you into that line of work, and how did you prepare for it?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's seen a lot more since COVID and everything happened. It's become quite a big profession. But I was diagnosed with ADHD during COVID. And I'd been through therapy and things like that. And the thing that was kind of pausing was how I actually work with my difference, right? How do I actually do this? And then this term ADHD coach came along, and it was very much coined in America. When I first started, I was in Asia. It wasn't really a thing in the UK, and I had this ADHD coach. So I started seeing somebody, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, like what this person can do for me. It was not giving me tips and tricks. It's just about them seeing me, helping me understand my brain and how it works. And I was like, well, I could do this, because I was working in schools with children like myself. I ran the special needs department in my school, and I was like, wow, I really want to do this for the people. And that's why I then went, after I'd gone through a process a lot myself, I went and trained in that, because I wanted to give people something that I never had, but earlier on in life.
So, how did you design your logo that I see right behind you? It's very, this is gonna be shameful, very eye catching. Ha ha ha. It's an eye, Irish. Uh, can't make that stuff up, people. How did you settle on that logo, and what's the difference between the Indigo Diaries podcast and the Indigo Hub?
Yeah, thank you. And I really like your eye catching. It is very eye catching because it's an eye. When I was young, someone said to me that understanding like differences and disabilities is not about trying to relate to someone, but it's about trying to see it from through their eyes. It's like trying to understand what they live through. You don't need to empathize. We just need to kind of understand. Just take a minute to kind of understand what it's like from their perspective. And then from that, I always seen that kind of eye that no one would ever really look at it through my eyes. It was always kind of their own stereotypes or whatever. And I never really fitted that. So that's why I came with the eye. And then it kind of went quite nicely with the indigo. So that's why I came up with, because it's my kind is kind of the world through your own eyes, right? Because sometimes we're skewed from other people. I want people to see it through my eyes. But I also want people to I also want to be able to see clearly through my own eyes, because a lot of my life has been skewed by other people's views of me that have then made me not be able to see myself, if that makes sense. And then Indigo Hub and Indigo Diaries. So Indigo Diaries has started first. And then Indigo Hub is like my hub of place where all my kind of things are, because I do quite a lot of different things. So Hub is like kind of the umbrella for all the different things I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how often do you do podcast episodes, and what are they like?
So for the past, I haven't made any this year actually, for the first year in a while, because I've been going through my therapy training. So I've had a lot going on. But when I first started it, I did it as kind of everyone just coming on to tell their story of being neurodivergent and what that looked like, to hear other people's kind of views. And then I kind of went into experts around different kind of experts of coming in to talk about kind of different areas of neurodivergency and that kind of aspect. But I love it because you probably tell, I'm a verbal processor. I like to talk. So it also helps me to, because I just love learning. So I like, yeah.
Yeah, so you may have mentioned that before. What kind of therapy training are you doing?
So I'm doing something called trauma informed somatic therapy. So it's around kind of how trauma's had an impact on our body and kind of helping people to unlock that. So it was kind of the second element, because a lot of my clients would come to me, or myself, and have coaching, but actually a lot of it is around other things that have happened in our lives. So I wanted to be able to help people with that full picture. So that's why I'm going through that training at the minute.
So, where do you want your hub to hopefully end up, or obviously make a difference? But like this podcast, which is now a video cast, and it's about to become a non-profit next year, was always designed to be an interview show. Sure, I can talk for 2 or 3 hours by myself. If I want to do that, I'll just do it in front of my mirror. I don't find that to be that appealing, that engaging. I find, like you, sharing and interviewing people about their lived experiences and their stories is much more what attracted me to this mode. What about you? It's not just a podcast, it's a coaching apparatus. That may be the wrong term, but where do you see yourself going with this?
That's a good question. And it's actually, for once in my life, actually made me stop and think from it. Before, just because I'm very
You're
much like,
welcome.
I could talk for hours like you could. But I think for me, because when I was 16, I didn't have that place to belong. I wanted to, kind of offer that space for people where they can belong, where they can figure it out, where they can, have somebody that sees it through their eyes, not through mine, because that's what being a therapist and coach is. It's about leaving your biases at the door and just being there and offering that space for that person. And that's what I wanted to create, that space where people can find themselves, really be themselves, so that they can do that in their own life and they can set their life up for that, rather than what they think they need or deserve, or what other people have told them that they have to have, or systems. And that's what I always wanted to create. Moving forward, I just want to keep doing this, like whatever I do, whether it's therapy, coaching, podcast, that's what I want to do, is to create this space where people feel belong, where people can really figure out what it is that they need to do, what they want to do, what they aspire. It's like the butterfly effect, really. You touch one and then it helps.
Yeah.
And that's, if I can help one person, I've helped one person.
So, what is it like taking a break from the podcast to focus on your therapy training?
Hard. Because I've missed talking to people. Like I mean, I love talking to my clients, but I like talking to, like more on this aspect. It's a different sort of kind of experience, and I've missed that, and I've missed that platform to be able to do that, because a lot of my clients or people that I speak to, they really like that, having that space to listen to things like that. So I have really missed that and that wealth of knowledge. But when like when you chuck too much at your life, you only give it kind of half-heartedly, and I want to put like everything into everything I do, and I can't spread myself thin. I've done that too many times. That for me doesn't work. So that's what I've kind of done for now.
Yeah, I've noticed, especially when I started doing video casting, it's made the dynamic and the chemistry a lot more appealing, that because we're such visual people, or we can be, we rely on non-verbal communication, and I just find it much more invigorating than just doing a regular podcast, because you have that enhanced connection with someone, and not just a disembodied voice. Not that we'll at all disembodied voices, but it's like, and so when you did your podcasts, do you just do podcasts, or do you also do video casting as well?
I agree with you 100%. When I did my podcast, I did it just voice, because I was almost kind of scared to be kind of on camera. And I remember going on to someone's a couple of years ago and doing it on camera for the first time and being like, because it was about myself. But like when I speak to clients and stuff like that, I much prefer it when I can see, especially for me being autistic, trying to read the voice is not, I can't always tell the tone and all that sort of stuff. So I need this visual to be able to see it. To see what I've got more kind of cues to go off if I can. That's why I hate phone calls. But I'm definitely gonna. I think I've grown a lot in my confidence in my own self, so that I now, if I was when I start it again, hopefully next year, I will go into videos because I 100% agree, and I think it gives not only for us but also for the audience to be able to
Yeah.
see people, right?
And it feels less like a job,
Yeah.
because you're actually, the conversations are much, much, much more richer and fuller than just audio. But I get asked, what's a video cat? And I'm like, well, uh, okay. You know how podcasts listen to it? Well, a video cat, you can watch it and you can listen to it. That probably sounded a lot more sarcastic than I meant it, but I'm always bemused how podcasts have now become the norm, and that's one of the only good things the pandemic has made. And I mean, who heard the word Zoom before the pandemic? I
Yeah.
mean, seriously. But it bemuses me that for some people, they don't know that a video cast is like a enhanced podcasts. Also, people who don't do podcasts, not all of them, but a lot of people think that podcasting or video casting is easy, which, to be fair, I thought the same thing before I started
Oh
doing
yes.
it. And now, I mean, it's my only job. It's my 9 to 5. I dream, I fantasize about it. Weird to say, but I can't shut my mind down. And I work with an incredible team who help me make it even better each and every new season. Do you ever find that reaction when you're talking about what you do to other people who are not in the industry or even the therapeutic industry? Oh, that must be an easy job. You should get paid to sit in a room and listen to people talk about themselves and their problems. If therapy was easy, we would all do it. It's not
Exactly.
easy
Oh no.
whatsoever. Not for the client, and definitely not for the therapist. There's more than one reason why there are therapists who
Yeah.
just see other therapists. And so talk about that dynamic.
Well, it's hard. I remember because I used to be a teacher, right? So when I used to say I'm a teacher, people used to, oh yeah, yeah, that's cool, yeah, yeah. And then when I say like, what do you do now? And like, oh, I run a podcast, I do this, that, and people go, like, you kind of get a silence because people and I get a lot of people go, yeah, like literally like blows them on. They're like, what? And then when I mentioned, I used to do it on, I used to go like, oh, I'm a neurodivergent life coach, and they go, what's they either get neurodivergent life or coach, and they go, oh, like a coach, like a sports coach, or they get neurodivergent and they're going to go, oh, that must be rewarding, and then they don't ask anything else, because a lot of people don't have any context. They don't
Yeah,
know what it is, and I think that's the hardest thing with when I tell people my job, is that people don't get it. And I get people, but I really like it when people ask, oh, what, oh, okay, what is that? But then
yeah,
that's when you get people that really want to like dig in. But I get a
yeah.
lot of people that either don't ask or go, oh, okay, and they breeze over it, or they go, oh, that must be really easy, like working for yourself at home. Like, oh, yeah, that, like it's a breeze.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's totally a breeze. I should really ask every therapist I've ever seen. I should ask them why they've made so much money off of me if it was such a breeze. That's a joke of it. Like, if any of my therapists are listening to this episode, but it's like just working for yourself.
Yeah,
It's like that must be so easy.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
most people think, and it's not really that easy at all. And so, what is that like for you?
I always say to people, if it was that easy, like if it was that easy, like honestly, if I knew how much stuff went into this, I would probably choose something easier. Like if I wanted something easier, I would probably have stayed in Asia teaching what I did and carried on. But I don't like easy, right? And that's the thing people get. I always say, well, if I wanted easy, I actually wouldn't be doing this, because it's the opposite of that, knowing, when are you going to get your next client, like, and things like that. And in the 17 different hats, you get this, that you have to wear,
Yeah.
you have to be a marketer, a researcher, a
Yep.
networker, a coach, a therapist. There's like, I call myself an octopus sometimes, like all these hands just like,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. It's like, but at least in America, there's this myth of the self-made man or the self-made woman. Like, you build yourself up, you work for yourself, your own thoughts, and so it must be easy peasy. Uh, but it's not. I mean, people check out
Yeah.
when, unless they're really curious and do the deep dive, the dig in, people are silent. It's like this podcast, which is now a video cast, stopped becoming a hobby for me after season 1. Because I didn't know if there was going to be a season 2 or not. And then I keep outpacing myself each and every season because I want to keep people engaged and I want the people around me who walk with me and alongside me to stay as engaged as they are. And if I don't get into ruts here. It's a brand new experience every time I turn on this microphone. No two interviews are the same. And so it's, but I'm not a therapist. And so how will it be? Because I'm sure you've thought about it. When you restart your podcast or your video cast, you will have, if you having completed your therapeutic training, you will be well on your way. And so will having more therapy background, in particularly trauma-based therapy, how will that influence when you return to the podcast?
I think, well, just something to add on to what you said there. It's hard, but that's where the magic is, right? Like nothing worthwhile is ever easy. I know that's a very kind of coined, very, but it's so true. Like that's what I love about my job. No day is the same. And it is hard, but without that hard, I wouldn't do what I did, right? Because if it was easy, I'd get bored because I'm ADHD. But also it's that joy and stuff that it brings. And I think that kind of goes into when I finish my training and start bringing it into it. It's going to be the same. I mean, it's me, but I've grown, and it's just a richness that's going to kind of come into it, where because there was a lot of stuff that I couldn't go into, because obviously as a coach, it's more about moving forward. A therapist is kind of about the past. And it's kind of, well, that's a very brief term, but it's just going to add more richness to it, and kind of more kind of truth, which is what I wanted. That's why I retrained to be a therapist, because I wanted people to go kind of a bit deeper, to really understand everything about themselves to move forward. And I think that's what I'm going to bring into my podcast, is just kind of more truth and more depth. Yeah. And that's a great thing about when you run a podcast or a video cast, or whatever you do, you can keep it, you can change it up, you can mix it up, you can do. That's the brilliant thing about it.
Yeah, I mean, I call that a show now, because a show, I don't like having to always say video cats, podcasts, or just call it a show or a program, because that's what it's becoming. I love that I'm able to offer, like now, two different ways to absorb this program on a weekly basis. I absolutely love it, because you can watch it on your TV, on your computer, or you can listen to it on your phone or in your car. I mean, that's just invigorating for me as the host. And I love being able to interview people, because it keeps it very interesting. And the humor, the dynamic, the chemistry, which again, you see and you even hear a lot more of the chemistry through the video, because we are actually looking at each other. We're not wondering, I wonder what he looks like. I wonder what she looks like. Blah, blah, blah. I wonder what her logo actually looks like. That's imposed on your bedroom ceiling, or is that a Zoom background? I literally cannot tell.
Oh no, it's well, no, I don't like Zoom backgrounds because they mess with my vision. But no, it's actually like my office, my work office upstairs, that I wanted to
Oh
to put
yeah,
my
work office. Why would it's like, why would someone record a professional Anyway,
Oh, I've done
stranger things
before.
have happened. Stranger things definitely have happened.
Definitely. Yeah, I had someone once record from a closet because the kids were out. So like, like a walk-in closet, these things, we do what we need to do.
Oh yeah, yeah. And when I'm recording in my New York location, because they're doing construction all around my building outside, I actually record in my dad's closet, which is a tiny like prison cell that has a light that comes on the moment you open the door. And I'm just sitting on a stool. And my computer is on a TV tray. It's on a TV table. You do what you need to do to make the magic happen. And so going back to, is this what you envision yourself doing? Because it certainly wasn't what I envisioned myself doing.
No, no, I didn't. Like, I very much came out of university, went into teaching, and thought, oh, I'm going to be a head teacher. I might want to own my own school. Like, that's very much where I was going. And then I just kept getting drawn and drawn and drawn to kind of neurodivergent children, and just kind of getting drawn. I'm like, why? Well, obviously because of me. But then, without that kind of training has helped me with this. But no, not once did I ever think I would be living here with a big eye on the back of my wall, being a therapist. But that's the great thing about this, right? Life chucks things at you and you make something of it. And I think that that's the great thing about kind of what we do, is we're trying to make something out of something that's happened or something that we experience. And I think that's the great thing. But no, not once did I ever think that. To be honest, when I was 12, I wanted to be a pop star. So,
Astronaut, dancer, policeman, fighter, astronaut, because I wanted to be able to exit the world without actually.
Yeah.
And so, but no, and sure, I wanted to be a pop star myself, because when you grow up listening to the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and Hanson, how could you not want to do that for a living? But I'm sure there are some people who do podcasting or video casting for fun, but we don't. We do it to give something back. And or at least that's how I am. When when you tell people you run podcasts, do they think you're just doing it as a hobby or because you're bored?
Yeah, like it's some sort of, and it is fun and I love learning, but like,
Yeah,
but when you talk about like what sort of podcast you're doing, people kind of then that's the people that then ask, right? Not the people that kind of just stand there and go, oh, okay, great, and move on.
yeah,
People that ask, they get it, because it's like you said there, it's giving something back, it's sharing your experience with others, it's helping other people like yourself, or creating that space, creating that awareness, all of that stuff. And that
yeah.
and that is, I think for me the best job I could ever have is using my own experience to help other people, right? And giving back and doing what you can, and that is, this is for me, I don't know about you, this is more than a job.
Yeah, Yeah. I mean, this is literally what I want people to remember me for. This is the only thing on in my obituary other than hopefully starting a family that
Yeah.
people should remember about me. Oh, and my voice. You can forget my name. You can forget my rugged good looks.
Brilliant.
You will just always remember my voice because I bled, sweat, and cried over countless, countless hours of speech therapy. And so you'll remember my voice for the rest of your life. I don't care what else you forget. You will remember my voice. So the voice, the family eventually, hopefully. But really, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so, yes, it's very much more than a job. I mean, you don't dream about your job, even if you're in love with your job. You don't fantasize about your job. If you do, please seek medical help immediately. Psych. Uh,
Yeah.
but no, it is, and you can speak to this or dispute it. It is a life calling. It is what I feel it's literally what I've been put on this earth to do.
I 100% agree. And I was going to say, like, I feel that it's a part of who I am.
Yeah,
Like, it's a part of who I am as a person. You know, when I think about my job, I think some of my, people's strengths or things like that, some of my best strengths, my best qualities come out in what I do as a job. And I think that's a part of it's, it's an extension of who I am, which means that it's the destiny and it's the path I was put on here for, right? Because we
yeah,
get put on here for, I couldn't agree with you, to do what we need to do, but that's because that's who we are, right?
yeah,
And I think that's the real, but then that's the difference between people that just do a job, right? And people
yeah,
that do that they love and they want to do, because it is an extension of what we are.
yeah, yeah. And so you'll relaunch your podcasts, video casts next. Yeah, uh, you'll besides the video cats and the mentoring, what what are some other aspects of the hub you're creating? Are you thinking of writing a book, becoming a neurodivergent pop star, and recording and releasing an album? Hell, I don't know. That's why I'm asking here. It's like, what's the hub
Mm.
about? Because that a hub seems like it could be a very diverse, different collection of offerings.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create that offering where it can be endless, right?
Yeah.
And for me, for next year, like, because I finished my therapy training at the end of this year, so I'll be transitioning rather than just the coach.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'll be going into kind of like the therapy space and kind of launching my therapy and coaching practice, which then is where then I'll introduce a new podcast. But it's or pick it up and kind of go more depth. but it's that thing of in 5 years, I don't know. And that's what I like about it. I mean, I always had
Yeah.
dreams, but they change all the time, I'm not gonna lie. So I kind of just go on kind of year to year, but it's very much, that's why I wanted to call it something where it could never end and grow. Because
Yeah.
1 week I might want to do this, or 1 year, I might want to in 5 years be a pop star, or the hub becomes a clinic, or whatever it
Yeah.
is. I think that's the best thing about this is it doesn't have to be defined.
Yeah, like the nonprofit is to add more structure and legitimacy with the 501c3 backing, designation backing. But I mean, the expansion opportunities that grow out of the nonprofit are just like the hub inlets. And it's about setting something up that will outlive me and outperform what
Yeah,
I'm able to do with it. I founded this show. It doesn't stop when I leave it. It doesn't stop with the last breath I take on
yeah, yeah,
this. It continues until it needs to end. I'm not gonna live to see a world where this type of show is no longer required. But I believe it's possible that we will get there, but I don't need to see everything. I wasn't around 80 years ago. I
no, no.
did, yeah. So, yeah.
Mm.
Okay, and so the wrapping up the final two questions I'd like to ask my guests is in case there are any inspiring podcasters, videocasters, therapists, coaches, uh, you wear many, many different hats.
Mm.
What would be some action steps or some advice you would give them?
I think it goes back to like what you said about kind of, who are you? Like, who are you? Like, what is it that you're here for? Right? Because people, therapists, podcasts, whatever, people always say, like, what's your mission? What's your purpose? What you're doing? But I think it's more than that. I think it comes back to kind of who are you? What are your strengths? What is your environment like? What do you want to create? Because, we all want to be, there's my famous quote about the flower, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower, right? When a flower doesn't bloom. And it's my favorite quote because if something's not working in your life, it's not always it. A lot of us go, oh, it's us, but actually it's what's around us. And it's about looking at what we are. What do we bring to this world? What do we enjoy? What do we like? What brings us joy? What brings us smile? What experience do we have through our life that's made us resilient, that's made us here? And then what do we want to do with that? And then what's the mission? What are you doing? How are you gonna voice? How are you gonna get your clients or whatever from that? Because I think we focus so much on the what rather than the who.
Yeah,
What are we doing? What are we trying to say? What, rather than who are we doing this for? Why are we doing? That comes the basis of anything is looking at who you are, what your strengths are, what qualities you bring, what's important to you. And then from that, what do you want to bring? How are you going to make it happen and all that? The doing. But first, you've got to look at the being and who you are and what it is that you want to bring to this world, or what it is you want to do for the rest of you. And it doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. It can just be for this moment, for this year, for this, and that's the magic about this, right? You can change it up. So I think that's also the other element. If you start along a path and it's not the right path, that's fine. Get a bus, spin it round, go on another path. But I think it always, whatever path you take, it comes back to who you are, because that's something that really gets missed in everything.
I'd like to think that both advocates with disabilities and those who have yet to discover or embrace their own disabilities view this program.
Yeah.
I'm not naive enough to think that either group or groups within those groups take away the same things from each episode.
Yeah.
So, as my guest, what do you hope that advocates with disabilities take away from everything we've talked about? And what do you hope that those who have yet to discover or embrace their disability take away from this episode?
I think that it's very similar to what I said about the job, right? Is that with everything around you and about you, as hard as life can be, because I know it can be really hard when you feel like you're the problem, you're the person that's thing, you're the person because you've been pushed aside or whatever it is. But actually, it is around what's around you. What are you doing? Where are you being? And we can use that experience that we go through with the magic. We find the magic in that, and it's hard because when you're in it, you don't feel like there's any magic, you don't feel like there's any turnaround, and that's fine. Be in that, right? Be where you are, but there is another side to it. When you really kind of go into what's going on, there is another side where you can be, every day being autistic, having it's really difficult, right? Going out doing, I could go on for hours, but I'm doing something with it. I'm trying to, I know who I am. I'm trying to build that. And we need help to do that, right? Please seek help, do what you need to do to be able to get that. But when we can create that, we can bloom and we can blossom to the way we're meant to do it. And it comes back to the who, right? With every who, we're human, right? There's downsides and upsides. But in the down, we can get some of the most beautiful stuff because we can do something with it. And I think that creates who we are or who we were meant to be. And I just think that is the biggest thing I can go down to, is even if things feels like it's really hard, there is going to be an up, there will be a repair, there will be a moving forward. You've just got to find that, whether that's seeking help, whether that's doing this, whether that's advocating. Everybody's got a purpose and everyone deserves to be here, however different that may look or be.
And so, what has, how have people, we're going into overtime now, what's, normally I ask this question way earlier on in the episode, but I think it will dovetail very nicely with what you just said. What is your journey like growing up and embracing your advocacy and propelling it to the Indigo Hub?
It was like a roller coaster. It was up and down, right? It was when I was growing up, because I didn't know. I think that was the biggest thing. It was like I lived my life in the dark, right? I didn't know. I didn't know who I was. So I always just thought it was me that was wrong, me that was wrong, me that was pushed out, me that had it. Everybody's got these struggles, or it's just me. There's something wrong with me. And there was so much self-blame because nobody understood. Nobody had the context or the awareness or anything like that. So you blame, you shame, you create this narrative around yourself. I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to be in this world. It's just me that struggles. What's going on? And then when I was diagnosed, it was almost like putting a light on and then seeing things from a different way, finally seeing things from the way I was meant to, the eye, right? Rather than what I'd been told. The light was on, I could see everything. And it's not so easy as in like get diagnosed, the light turns on. But it was very much, I had to go through, I went through therapy, I went through advocacy, speaking to other people, learning about it, changing environments. And it was hard. And it wasn't, then I found out I was diagnosed. Yeah, that's it. It was hard. And that was some of the hardest times. But I knew, as hard as it's been since I've been diagnosed, I knew that it wasn't just me. And I knew that I actually belong. And it just created this calmness with me where I just didn't blame myself. I didn't blame myself that I'm autistic. I didn't blame myself that this is just the way I am. And I'm gonna use that, and I'm gonna embrace that, and I'm gonna turn that around. And it's taken many years and many things and many stuff. But in that, and some days I'm still like, but without that time of my life, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I wouldn't be able to offer whatever. I wouldn't have the life I have now, which I'm very thankful for and privileged for. Without all that, I wouldn't have the light. Does that make sense? And like I wouldn't see.
Yes.
Yeah, and I wouldn't see. I always say like the first 8 years of my life there was a light because I was still trying to figure out who I was, and then the dark came, and then the lights come back on because I finally started to create the environment where I blossom. Not all the time, we're human. But I blossomed rather than trying to fix myself. I just looked around because it's not what's wrong with me, it's what's wrong around me that I needed to change.
Please write a book because throughout this episode, I keep wanting to turn to the next page, listening to you. And I'm like, yeah, you should really ask her to write a book because it's just another angle, another offering in the endless expansion of the hub. I'll become a neurodivergent pop star. I mean,
you never know. Watch this space.
What?
Watch this space. You never know.
Yeah, dreams do happen.
Yeah.
Natasha, I hope we do another episode again if you want me to come on your podcast when we launch. Please know that I'm willing. You're always welcome here. Thank you for staying up or sharing some of your evening with a early riser. Don't tell my dog I said that. You're not an early riser at all. If she could talk. But I would really like to do another episode because all how the Americans and how the Americans view disability and how UK and EU view disability. We have very different methods and different disability movements, and that would be a great talk about a research heavy episode. That would, and we will probably need to bring in a few more people to really unpack it all. But I mean, hey, I'm just spitballing here. There is no script. If people, we're in season 5. People think that I operate with a script. where have you been? What show have you been listening to? Uh, for Natasha, I really thank you for coming on this show this morning. I hope we keep in touch and uh, record another episode. Congratulations again for finishing your training. Uh, I look forward to watching you grow, bloom, seeing everything you're creating through the Indigo Hub and the Indigo Diaries. And please keep in touch.
I will do.
And
Thank you so
thank
much.
you again. Take care.
Thanks you. You too.